session, a quick introduction to our team and the work that we do here before we jump into our PPM 360 Resource Management Hub to discuss how you can use it to balance workloads, optimize scheduling and availability, and how all of this leverages Power BI reports to make informed decisions on resources. I'll go ahead and introduce myself. I'm Charlene Cleargos, an account executive here supporting our customers throughout their Microsoft work management journey. I also have on the call with me Allison Dewey, one of our customer success managers, who will be presenting on today's topic. Okay, so background on Marquee 360. For anyone who is new or unfamiliar to us, we're a Microsoft Gold Partner for work management on the M365 cloud solutions. And that just means we have been recognized by Microsoft as a trusted partner to work side by side with their team in supporting their customers throughout their Microsoft investment. Our work focuses on the M365 applications like Planner and Teams, as well as a Power Platform with tools like Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power BI. Our founders are actually previous Microsoft employees. So they've seen many iterations of project management tools, everything from Project Server to Project Online, which is retiring, as we all know, in September of this year. And then more recently, a Planner, where Microsoft is shifting their focus for work management. What we've done is we've taken what already exists for Microsoft and expanded it with the Power Platform to help teams be more productive. Just at a high level, these are the main areas that we focus on here. We spend a lot of time helping customers extend the Microsoft Work Management Platform and take a consultative approach to designing the right solution, and then supporting your team through implementation, training, and ongoing support after go live, whether that's through workshops or hypercare support. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Allison to talk about PPM 360.
Thank you, Charlene. And I'm going to actually, steal your screen, and then we'll take a moment. I saw that someone may not necessarily be seeing the screen. So how are things now? Can everyone see the big PPM 360 slide?
Yes.
Maybe thumbs up. Okay, very good. All right, let me just get myself situated because I moved my. All right, so yes, so today we are going to talk and basically explore Marquee 360's Resource Management Hub. As Charlene mentioned, it's a single hub for easier oversight and decision making. Right, you're going to see that it's going to assist with balancing workloads and optimizing allocations. She also mentioned that with all the data that we are entering into the system, we're able to surface that through the report pack that comes with PPM 360. If you are not familiar with PPM 360, what this is, it's a collection of Power Apps developed by Marquee 360. And it basically empowers project leads and teams throughout the life cycle. So you'll see here, when we talk about the life cycle, typically we have a means of bringing, of project intake. So we have an app for that. Then obviously we want to, govern the project throughout the life cycle. So the PPM 360 app has lots of features and functionality that support that. We then obviously need to plan and manage the schedule. So embedded within the PPM 360 solution is the use of Microsoft Planner, specifically the premium plans. That also all integrates with Microsoft Teams. So that way we are able to encourage and provide a platform for collaboration between the team members. And then we have that analytics and reporting component. So that will assist with data analysis and visualization. So again, basically at the root of it, what PPM 360 is doing is extending the use of Planner. So again, planner. We're using that for the schedule management. We're integrating with teams to promote that collaboration. We're then expanding on the feature set with things such as the resource management hub that I'm going to discuss in a moment. We can integrate. We can integrate with Copilot, and actually other applications you may have. If you have an ERP or some other financial system you want to tap into, we have that capability. And then again, there is that reporting. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what PPM 360 is, and will be in there. So if you've never seen it before, you'll get a glimpse. But again, today what we're here to talk about is a key component of that solution, which is the Resource Management Hub. So with the Resource Management Hub, what you're going to see is the first thing we do is we set capacity or availability thresholds. And then that is used during engagement planning, where engagement is basically, the planned commitment of a resource to the project, right? Just how much time are they expected to be involved in the project? That is different than effort, right? So then what you're also going to see is for each resource, we're going to be able to go in there and specify their working hours. And it's actually Planner, like when we're building our schedules, Planner considers those working hours when it's figuring out how they will be able to get the effort completed. So again, effort, that's the time that the resources are going to spend performing actual tasks, right? That work measured in hours. Now, as far as engagement planning, what our system supports and encourages is a use of a capacity model. So like planning based on engagement rather than that actual effort, because basically it's much easier to manage, right, the like high level commitments versus the detailed breakout of tasks. So we're trying to reduce administrative overhead. Also, we could understand what the engagement is expected to be long before we're actually breaking out the work and assigning tasks or during sprint planning. And we may actually have people that are engaged in the project that aren't actually being given specific task work. They might be, participating in meetings. So again, not necessarily something where they're going to be given a task and logging their time. And with all of that, we're able to basically strategically forecast, right? We can model the needs and we can determine availability without having, a completely detailed plan before doing so. So I'm gonna do some screen switching. So hold on one second. And I'm also gonna go off camera because you're gonna see me looking back and forth, and I know that would distract me. So hold on one second. So I'll say this, if anyone has a question, please just speak up because right now I'm not going to be monitoring the chat. But if you do ask something via the chat and I miss it, maybe Charlene or one of my other colleagues will help me out. All right, so our native solution supports monthly planning by percent. So what I'm going to do here is, so first of all, if you have not seen PPM 360 before, this is our app. If I had just directly logged in, you would have been brought into this homepage. And here we're just seeing, some visualizations of the projects that are currently defined in the system. But here on the left-hand side, you'll see we have this thing called the Resource Hub. This area is typically utilized by resource managers, or it could be even members of the PMO. And you'll see here that we have a list of our bookable resources. We can have resources of various types. Usually, we're primarily users. We can also define contacts to serve as almost like to be determined in the event that we want to start building out our schedule and saying, hey, I'm going to need a developer for this task, or I'm going to need a analyst. So we can also define resources of contact type and so forth. But I'm going to focus on the user, and I'm going to actually pull myself up. And I'm just going to kind of focus in on a couple key components. So the first thing you see here is that resource capacity. This is like a master setting, and this is my threshold in the form of a monthly percent. So what they're saying is that, Allison, she should really never have more than 50% of her time being consumed by project work. The other system setting we see here is a default utilization. So a little bit later on in the demo, you're going to see me start to add resources to a project team. And anytime we add a resource to the project team, it's going to start to populate the anticipated resources level of engagement. And it's going to use this value as the default. Certainly the project manager or the resource manager can edit that. But again, this is like a system master setting. Once that is defined for a user, what PPM 360 does is populate basically almost like a list of availability for a period of 10 years. So I'm going to go ahead and pull myself up again. So if you recall, my threshold was 50%. So when I was first added to the system, again, PPM 360 for a period of 10 years, laid out my availability. And it is our reporting that uses this when we're doing analysis and generating availability heat maps. You'll notice the values, they actually do kind of fluctuate because that's expected that over time, what my availability is going to change. So right now I'm in an editable grid. So, I could certainly be a resource manager and I've had a conversation, and it turns out that at the beginning of next year, I'm actually going to be involved in some other items. And so when it comes to project work, January, my availability is going to be a little light, but then come February, I'll be good to go to take on a whole slew of projects. Okay. Now, where this all comes into play is I'm now going to go into a plan. And I'm going to open this up. And so again, if you are new to PPM 360, when we define plans in this tool, first of all, you'll see we have basically a business process flow meant to help, govern the life cycle of the project and, make sure it's moving through the different phases as we would expect, and that the different deliverables are being met. You see we have a number of other tabs. Usually we will have a project charter, so we have a place to capture that information. Often project managers are required to generate some sort of status reports, perhaps on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. They may be responsible for tracking financials. And then again, they're going to have a team. So that's where I'll pick up. So you can see right now, I have two individuals in this particular project team. It's myself because I'm the project manager, and then I've already added Charlene. And you will see that then down below, we have a grid of the resource engagement. How will these individuals, or how are we anticipating these individuals will be engaged in the project throughout its life cycle? So I'll show you how this works. I'm going to go ahead and add another person to the project team. So I'm going to go ahead and say new. And I'm going to look for my friend Mike Example. I'm going to go ahead and assign him a role. I'm just going to pick just a general role for the purpose of this demonstration. And then I'm going to put in what is his expected commitment to the projects. So he's starting this month, and he's going to be with us through the end of July. So now Mike is a member of the team, and behind the scenes, there's a workflow that is going and looking at what is Mike's default utilization. And in a moment, and I'll just hit refresh, Mike has now also been added to the grid down here, and Mike's default utilization is 20%. And since Mike is going to be with us from April to July, it has set his default utilization, or I'm sorry, default level of engagement as 20%. And as a project manager, I can go ahead and modify this. Maybe because he's starting mid-month, I actually only am going to be using him like 10%. But once we get into June, I need a higher level of commitment from him, right? So that's how I can manage that. The other way this scenario plays out is, maybe we don't know all the individuals that are going to be part of our project team. And so now we're starting to build out our schedule. And you'll see I have a couple of placeholders in here for further on in the demonstration. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a task for Aaron. Now, Aaron was not yet defined as a member of my project team. And so they're saying, hey, should she be a member of this team? Like, should she be able to see the schedule, be a part of the Microsoft team, be able to collaborate? And in this case, yes, I absolutely expect her to be part of our collaborative group. So I'm going to go ahead and say assign and add. And I'm going to give her a task. Having done that, if I come back to the resources tab, shortly we should see that Erin becomes a team member and that she is then added to the engagements down here. Because I only gave her basically a 1 or 2 day task, some of her information is going to need to be modified. I'll probably have to put in a more accurate finish date, and then I may need to go down and also adjust her resource engagement. All right. So with all of that information in there, as I mentioned, we have some reports to kind of pull that all together. And the first one that I want to show you, I'll be showing you, is the resource availability. So it's going to use those things we just reviewed. It's going to compare basically the engagements that we just defined compared to the system availability, right, where we had that 10-year chart. And then I'll also show you another place where that is visible. So let me just get my screens organized again. So I'm going to come into our PPM 360 reports. And you'll see we have a pretty big report pack. We have over 17 reports that come with PPM 360 to help you, follow your projects and status and whatnot. But down here, we have resource availability. So what we are looking at, I'm going to focus just on the bottom part. So here on the left, we have a list of all of our resources and the level of engagement that the PMs are defining on a project by project basis. And then those are rolling up. So you can see, let me go ahead and select my name. So this is me, and these are all the projects, and this is the level of engagement. And you can see that is 125%. And if you recall at the beginning of this, I mentioned that, my threshold is 50%. So I am showing not only red, but I'm showing negative 50, because I am over allocated. Now, Charlene, on the other hand, is not. In January, let's see, we were over here in March. So we can see there's that project, nothing there, but then here. So this is an easy way for me to see who might need to, I have to go have some conversations and adjust the work. And a way that I can do that is if I come back to PPM 360 as a resource manager, I can come to engagements. And again, I'll look for myself. And then, I'm having conversations with the project managers. Maybe I'm having conversations with the resource itself. And I can come in here and also make edits directly. So maybe I've talked to someone and we're going to shift some work around. Let's pick something this year. And so maybe, this becomes 0, and maybe this, becomes 0. And we agree that come September, I'll be ramping up. So I'm going to pause there and see, does anyone have any questions about that engagement management component? All right.
I got a question, please.
Yes.
So whenever you're, yes, please. Whenever you identify some over allocation, as just so you presented here in your example, is there any way to do it, to fix it automatically and rebook resources as define yourself?
I'm not sure I followed your question. I'm sorry. Can you repeat it?
Yeah, so I'm in a noise place. Not sure if it's annoying, but what I'm trying to understand, whenever you have those over allocations, is there an automatic process where you rebook activities for a resource? I mean, to meet the rules you have defined at the beginning, that resource is supposed to be booked up to 75% or
Right.
50% of its time. Is it possible?
Yes. So yes, I will say, so you asked the question, is it possible? So yes, so by default, our system does not prevent you from over allocating a resource. I'm actually working with a customer right now where they actually would say all of this is green because they are in the business of billing. And so they love it when their resources are over allocated. But in the event that you wanted to actually have the solution maybe set a warning or say, no, I'm sorry, that the resource isn't available. This app is built on the Power Platform and it is very customizable. So we could certainly add logic, various automations in order to assist with, not exceeding that threshold and providing some sort of warning or, preventing it altogether. Does that answer your question?
It does. So that you need to have some rule configuration to do that, right? So this is
Yes.
a customization on the PPM
Yes.
360. Okay, got it.
Exactly. Yep.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Anyone else have a question with regards to this?
Sorry, I have a question because I'm not familiar with the PPM 360, so
Okay.
I'm not sure what else there is, but I'm very interested in this because I'm the PMO and we need something like this. But the resources, first off, is this the PPM 360 in this, is this a cloud-based?
Yes.
Or okay, so, and it just interfaces with our own Office 365 that we have.
Exactly. So yeah,
Okay.
so if you're not familiar with PPM 360, if you have a Microsoft 365 account, and usually like the PMs, the resource managers, PMO staff, they will have elevated planner licensing. With just that, they're able to use this tool. And then those that are more likely just the team members, they have a different view, but their main goal is to know like what work are they supposed to do and reporting their progress.
Right. Okay. And since they're all on Microsoft 365, they have that access to go that and
Yep.
and do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And usually those staff members, they will not necessarily come into the PPM 360 app, and I'll demonstrate this when we get to the second half of this conversation. They might instead just work in the context of Microsoft Teams to get to that schedule, and even to see some of the project information is read only. But actually, I'm glad you asked the question and kind of brought me back to here. So what a lot of organizations will do is they will have us set up an automation that keeps this list of bookable resources synchronized with their Entra ID or their Active Directory. So as resources are added or deactivated, this just, stays in sync with that. So we don't have that redundant place of, data management.
Right. And can that also be driven down to just particular groups? Say, we're an IRT, we're IT. So I have a director that has all the BIAs. I have a director that has all the development. I have a director that does all the networking. And those resources would fall under them. And they would actually probably be the person that would say who gets assigned to the project and what their level of, availability is.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and as long as your Active Directory is set up in a way that we can figure that out, or if they're all in a particular group, absolutely. And you bring up another point. So, I mentioned as I was your project managers, they're working with the resources in the context of their plan, right? They can't go automatically be like, well, I need more time. I'm going to go jump in, take away some engagement from another project. We have security roles that, keep people in their lanes. So you have your project managers that are going to just work in the context of the projects they own. But again, you might have resource managers or representatives of the PMO that, they have, greater rights and could come in here and could make changes across the portfolio.
Great. Okay. That's
okay.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So I'm going to switch. So again, this was regarding engagement. So now I'm going to switch over to discussing working hours. So there are basically two, again, kind of system level features that you would be configuring that then get factored into creating your planner schedule and actually giving people work. So first, what we do is we have, usually most organizations have just a single default project calendar, and that defines, right, just, your standard working days, Monday through Friday. Also, you usually will include the holidays, so we know when no one's actually going to be doing any work. And Planner actually uses that calendar when it starts to figure out, okay, when does this task start? When will this task finish? And what is the duration of that task? So every time a project is created, it basically takes a snapshot of that project calendar to then be used by the Planner schedule engine. The other piece that kind of overlaps that when Planner is considering everything that it does is that each resource also has a work calendar. What I want to call out here is what this resource calendar is meant to be is a representation of the resource's typical availability. It is not meant to serve as the PTO system or anything like that. It's really meant to reflect what their general availability is, and we would only define non-working time if they're expected to be gone for a long period, right? So maybe they are going to be out on paternity leave or maternity leave, or maybe they are going to they're going to go take some long bit of training and aren't going to be available for project work. So let me show you where those are managed. So I'm going to, again, end my show. So the first thing I mentioned is the project calendar. In PPM 360, we have a place where we can get into our settings. And you'll see that there are the calendar templates. As I mentioned, usually there's just one, but it is possible to have multiple. And when we then create a project, we can say, which calendar should we be using? And this looks pretty much, like the calendars you see in Outlook. And when this is considered, what it's really looking at are, working days. So let's see, we're in April. If I were to jump to May, you'll see that we've defined the Memorial Day holiday as a non-working day. If I jump to July, we are observing the 4th of July holiday actually on Friday, so that's a non-working day. So those are the types of things you would put into, this project calendar that serves as the default.
Along those lines, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Is there a way
no.
to import a calendar that has like all the New Jersey state holidays and all the federal
I don't
holidays?
think there's, I
Okay.
don't think there's a way to import it, but usually when we do a PPM 360 setup as part of the requirements, we'll talk about that and we'll get the preliminary, dates set, and then we teach you how to add them moving forward.
Okay.
Okay. And then for the resources themselves, I'm actually going to pick on Mike. Example account. Okay, and you're going to see it looks very similar. And what we can do is, specify the resources work hours. And in this case, you'll notice Mike he works 4 hours a day. So what you'll see later when I start adding Mike or versus Charlene or versus myself, when I add them to a task and planner, if I give Mike a 1-day task, you're going to see, well, then the effort's 4 hours for Mike. He can't do any more than 4 hours in a day given his working hours. So that's how those two kind of work together. So let's go ahead. I just want to highlight some things. So the purpose of Planner is to schedule future work, right? What we're using Planner, we're using it to help teams anticipate their work, to align their priorities, to coordinate their effort, to stay connected on progress. It is not meant for retrospective reporting. And something I know lots of people get frustrated with, including myself, is that like some of the behaviors that I'm gonna, show right now, these are based on like common configuration patterns. So what you're seeing, it's not necessarily a hard guarantee that Planner's always gonna react the same way. Depending on the circumstances, sometimes there are nuances, and you'll expect the duration of a task to be 5 days, and for some reason Planner just says it's 6. So there do seem to be some nuances. So just wanted to call that out. I have yet to master those nuances. But I can tell you in general terms what Planner is doing as we, create tasks and assign them. So the first thing that the Planner schedule engine does is it sets the duration. So it looks at that project calendar to figure out how many working days, right, are happening between the task start and this task finish. And it will find out, is there anything that's going to block the scheduling of that task that it needs to take into consideration? For example, a holiday. Once it has that figured out, it's going to start sizing the effort. And it turns out, and this is why sometimes things look a little awkward, is it does it one of 2 ways. If you have a clean run of work days, Monday through Friday, right? Planner can very easily determine, oh, that's a 5-day task. In the event that the task, in the span of the task, we encounter a weekend or a holiday, a planner will actually use a different model. It's called a calendar distributed model. And so then things might seem odd. Like I said, you might see that the duration of a task is 6, but the math that it does is based on 5 days because the holiday's in there. The other thing that is, it doesn't come up so much when companies just are, standard 8-hour workday. Planner always uses this project hours per day system parameter, which by default is 8 hours. So if you are an organization organization where your schedule is really like 4 days a week, 10-hour days, Planner is never going to put more than 8 hours on any resources schedule unless we realize that at the very beginning and again tailor the system. So just wanted to call, those are some things that as we're working with Planner that we have come to learn.
I have
So
a
yeah.
question. So along the lines of that, number of hours today of day to work on projects. If would that be like desirable to change that to say, hey, they only want 4 hours a day working on projects because they need 4 hours a day to work on everything else that they got to do with their normal jobs, right? Would it be acceptable to put like 4 hours in there, and then when you do 25%, I guess it would just be 1 hour is what they would commit to that?
Yeah, and again, so that's separate from, right now we're talking about effort, like assigned work versus engagement. So yeah, you would definitely need to think through that blend, but certainly if you want to make sure that if someone gives a person a 2-day task, that's really only 8 hours because they're only spending 4
Right.
hours a day on project work. So yes,
Exactly. Yep.
that model would certainly work.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and let's do some assignment, and then I'll show you how PPM 360 then surfaces the data and reports, because that's the big limitation between, with Planner. You often want to understand what's going on across a whole portfolio of projects, and we don't really have good insight into that. All right, so I'm going to open up my project, and I'm going to go into my schedule. And what I'm doing here is, again, this is Planner embedded within PPM 360. You will notice that I have an option. I'll come back to this, but I do have an option. If my preferred way of working is just to be managing my work in Planner, I could certainly see this schedule right within the Planner app. If my preferred way of working is within Teams, and it's always tricky to demonstrate Teams when you're presenting in Teams, so let's see what I can do here. And this is usually, I was mentioning, like, the general team members who are just being assigned work, they won't necessarily come into the PPM 360 app. They are more likely to come into the team and manage their work here and have conversations. But you see, we've got 3 different views of exactly the same thing. They're like 3 different windows into the same bit of data. All right. So let's see. The first thing I was going to do is I'm going to schedule this task to begin on Friday, July 3rd. Now, remember, what was Friday, July 3rd at my office? It is a holiday. So I'm going to say that this task is supposed to begin on Friday, and look what it automatically did. Before I could even click to the finish, it said, oh no, you can't do that because Friday's a holiday. And so it just moved me up to the next available date. Certainly I could move it back instead, but Planner's trying to do me a favor by at least not letting me set this on that date because it's not permitted based on my calendar. Okay, so there we go. We have our 1-day task. The other thing I do not have here, let's go ahead and I will add this as well. So again, based on my work hours, Allison was given a 1-day task and she can accommodate 8 hours. So that's that. Let's add Mike to a task. So I'm going to go this time, I'll do it this way. So we're going to assign Mike. And I'm going to say he's going to do this task Monday. And in his case, it gave a 3-hour task. Now, why that's not 4 hours? Again, sometimes there are nuances. And so Planner will do something that's not quite expected. But at least I do know that Mike is not able to give me 8 hours a day. And so if I expect this task is going to require more work from him, I'm going to have to, extend how long that task will take. Let's see what happens when I add Charlene. So I'm going to add Charlene to a task, and I'm going to say she's going to start it on the May 20th, or actually, no, I'm sorry. We're going to say she's going to start it on the 27th, and she's going to finish on the 30th. That's 4 days. And so we've now got hours. One thing I wanted to call out, another thing that Planner does is Planner, if I were to add another resource to this, Planner never divides the effort. It always adds to. It assumes that 2 people are doing the same task in parallel. So if I were to add myself to this, you're going to see that the hours then increase. And then let's give Erin a task as well. I'm going to give Erin, I'm going to say that she's going to start on the 20th and that she then ends on the 27th. And even though it spans more than 5 days, the reason it says 5 days is because we have a holiday in there. So as all of that is happening, let's look at what's kind of nice within the context of Planner is we can kind of evaluate how things are within the project itself, like who has how much work. If we really wanted to be granular about, when the work is being done, we actually do have the ability to play with these numbers. And then another feature is, or we can look and see how the work is, right? So this was that task that I assigned to 2 people, and Planner went ahead and divided the work for me. Now, all of this data in, and this is nice, I can see the assignments within the project, but I don't know what Erin's doing outside of this project. For all I know, like maybe Erin can't take on this work. And so that's again where our report pack comes into play. So we have the resource dashboard. And what this is showing us is basically the distribution of resources across projects, right? So down here, I can see, this project has 7 resources. These have 6. I can also see how the tasks are distributed across my resources, how much work is overdue, what's completed, what's on track. And then again, in the context of the resources, just how much work they have, what's been completed, and what is remaining. Another report that we have is the resource assignments view. What I like about this one is, let me see if I have any. I'm going to clear the filters first. So what we have here is a list of all of our resources, and we can expand them to then see, what projects they are affiliated with. I could just click. And then what's kind of nice is I was playing with this earlier. So what I could do is say, you know what, I'd like to focus in on Mike. And I'd like to know what is he working on that is expected to finish. Let's say, just trying to get, let's see, that's expected to start today. And I can apply the filters, and I can see, all right, he's got nothing that's expected to start today, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's not already working on something. So depending on how we use these filters, we can actually see, like, of a specific month, you know, how much work do they have on their plate, because the visual does do some totals down here. So remember that when we are using Planner, what it's trying to do is answer the question, given the effort, when can resources assigned actually do work on them? Again, I called out that Planner never assumes the work is shared, right? So if you start adding resources, it's just going to assume that same task is being done by 2 different people at the same time. And then in the event you have any, you have a unique calendar situation where, you know, your working hours are actually 10 hours a day, let's say, instead of 8, the effort that gets put on the resources schedule each day is never going to exceed the system parameter, which by default is 8, or what their limitation is, right? Like, so for Mike, he would never be given by Planner more than 4 hours a day. Could you overwrite that manually? Yes, you could. The other thing that Planner doesn't do is, you know, if I put Mike on a task, it's not going to necessarily say, oh, well, that means project days are only 4 hours long. That's not part of it. So again, that Planner uses that sequencing of thought, right? First, you know, what days can the work happen? And then given the person and their working hours, how much effort am I expected to get out of them each day during that task time span?
Is there any, so does the system look at personal time off at all? Can it?
No,
Can't.
yeah. I mean, I have had discussions with customers that do use those working hours as kind of a PTO system, but that's not really how it was meant to be built. So ways that I know organizations have gotten around that, if they're, you know, they might have a project, right? An administrative project called PTO, and keep that up to date with, you know, when they have time off.
Okay.
That's one way. As I mentioned, this solution is highly customizable. So we have integrated with a variety of systems, and you know, I have not yet myself been on a project where it's considering maybe a third-party PTO system to factor into probably more so engagement than assigning tasks. But you know, the developers would probably be upset, but like I feel like anything is possible,
Right.
you know, with this particular solution.
No, I was just wondering if it would be smart enough to know that somebody has it or out of office, so it has to push a date somewhere or
Yeah,
something like
no,
that. But no.
that sounds like a
Okay.
great feature.
I mean, if they're doing it in their Outlook calendar, you know, should have access to it.
Yeah, yeah. So, in summary, right, like, so when we talk about PPM 360 versus Planner just as a standalone solution, you know, we saw that, you know, as far as demand forecasting and portfolio level, you know, resource planning, that's what the resource management hub is for, right? By you know, managing availability and then project level resource engagement. We certainly don't have that capability in Planner. The project calendar. So in Planner, you actually can customize it. You have an option to select a calendar, and you could certainly put one in, you know, define one within the Power Platform admin. But the thing is, that's kind of hidden. And it's not like the management of it isn't really centralized. So what's nice with PPM 360, right? We know what our default calendars are. We manage them there, and then the system just keeps reusing those calendars specifically. And so we, you know, we have a standardized ways of governing our work and non-working days. As far as the resource work hours, Same thing. If you're in Planner, you may have noticed there is a little small notation that you can, connect it with the Power Platform and resource work hours. But again, typically no one's really overseeing that. With PPM 360 and our resource hub, we make that accessible right there within that UI. So whether it be, resource managers or our PMO representatives, they can govern that centrally. As far as then being able to see, the portfolio assignments and over allocations, we can't really detect that in Planner, but given the reports and our report pack, that is part of our base solution that is available with the PPM 360 tool. And then, it goes on. So, we're focusing on a very small piece of PPM 360, but in the event you wanted to somehow tie this all back to cost tracking, we can make that happen as an enhancement. And then in the event, as I said, Planner's not really meant, it's for planning. It's not for necessarily, capturing actuals. But Marquee 360 does have timesheet solutions available that can be integrated with this solution. So I have 7 minutes left. Are there any questions that you'd like to ask of me to see if I can either answer in the moment or perhaps take offline and then get back in touch with you?